Tekken 8 Season 3 isn't just a bad update, it's sort of like a mini warning sign, or maybe a major warning sign, but because what's happening with Tekken right now isn't just about one patch, it's about the whole direction that the game is going in, and if that direction doesn't change, this is really going to become a bigger, major problem. And what I'm saying is, this is because if you really look at Tekken 8 right now, it isn't just one issue. It's a combination of a lot of things that are starting to build up, and we've seen this happen before, not just in Tekken 8, but in other fighting games too. But before we get into that, if you guys don't know me by now, I'm Mr. Frosty Flames, but you can call me Mike. I do anything gaming, analysis, reviews, playthroughs, etc. with none of that over-editing BS. So if you like that style of content, please subscribe and join the Frosty Flames Legion. We're 1,600 strong and we're going for 1,700. Subscribe and enlist now. Anyways, back to the video. I know I made a Tekken 8 video before talking about the failure and the disastrous launch of Season 3. However, I just want to make another video, which is this one, talking about the more broader perspective and how it relates to fighting games as a whole. But obviously this is going to be Tekken focused, and we're going to see why Tekken has lost everything and why players are just drifting off right now really quickly. And that's the core issue, which is the direction of the game. I feel like Tekken is sort of losing clarity in its identity. Like, the biggest issue with Tekken 8 right now is direction, and that's how it, plain and simple, if you want it in like short terms, because it doesn't feel like the game knows exactly what it wants to be anymore. Because Tekken, if you played the other ones, it's always been about fundamentals, like, you know, movement, spacing, punishment, knowledge. Like I said in my other video, it's the thinking man's fighting game. It's like you're actually playing a martial arts game. Because of the core philosophy of the game, it was like you needed to master the basics of like movement, spacing, stuff like that, in order to be great at the game, even more than, you know, like games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. But now with the new updates and just with Tekken 8 in general, with the heat system, the game is clearly pushing players to play more aggressively, with more pressure and more like forced interactions. And the thing is, when you start forcing a playstyle in a game that was built on freedom, because the other games you could sort of like play sort of how you wanted, you know, obviously there were metas and not, but here it's more like built on aggression, and defensive options are just not viable. And because this game, you know, this franchise was built on freedom, that's where problems begin, when you start forcing an aggressive playstyle, especially when nobody wants it, and then you proceed to apologize like they did before, saying that they're gonna go back to basics, right? But then just double down on the stuff that the fans don't like. And obviously the core mechanic, the heat system, that's changing the identity of Tekken. But that's just, you know, opinion based. But let me know what you think about the heat system, because this is where a lot of it starts. You know, on paper, it's supposed to make the game more exciting, but in practice, it changes how Tekken is played at the fundamental level. You know, instead of neutral being about patience and spacing, now it often turns into like forced offensive situations and 50-50s, which players don't like. Obviously, every fighting game has 50-50s, but when like every interaction feels like you're playing rock, paper, scissors, or you're gambling at the casino, then there's a problem. Players aren't just thinking about movement anymore. They're constantly thinking about when heat activates, or how to deal with it and how to respond to it. You see, this doesn't just add to Tekken, it sort of like reshapes it into something different, and that the fans like really are a bit iffy on. And when you have systems that even are 50-50 with the fans, you start to get issues with major player drop-offs. Because take a look at like Mortal Kombat 1, the cameo system. Players loved it and some players hated it. Players loved the combo extension, but most players, or not most, but you know, a majority of the players just didn't like it. And when you have issues like that, you sort of divide the fan base, and it starts to become a scenario where you're splitting the fan base in half. Obviously the people that don't like it won't take the game seriously competitive wise, and that really just messes with the whole reputation of the game. And another thing, not just with Tekken but with other fighting games, is this is just my preference, where I think a lot of fighting games are going in this direction. But you know, this falls into the category of Tekken 8 as well, and I'm sure many people would agree, is that it sort of like overloads the player, because there are too many systems and there's just too much to track. You know, this leads into another issue, and that's just like mental overload. There's just too much going on at once, because you, like, say Tekken 8, you have like heat, you have character specific tools, legacy mechanics, you need matchup knowledge in a roster that's massive, and it just all stacks together. It's very intimidating for anyone trying to get into Tekken, which really broadens the fan base even more. Tekken has always been complex, don't get me wrong, but now it feels like the complexity is coming from systems, not just, depth of the game. And like even in Street Fighter 6, you could see this with the drive system, sort of like everything revolves around it. You need to master that system to be good. And in Mortal Kombat 1, the cameos added another layer that players had to constantly think about. So it's like, you can't really master the game without mastering its mechanics as a whole. Before, in fighting games, in older fighting games, you could just be good at the fundamentals like spacing, punishing, all that stuff, right? And you could be amazing. However, now it's just like you gotta master these mechanics that people sometimes just don't like, or it kind of forces these mechanics onto you a lot of times, which are just unfair. And a big thing specifically about, Tekken 8, but again also in other fighting games right now like Mortal Kombat 1, is the community is losing trust with these developers. And this is where, things get serious, because we start to just not believe what they're gonna do, because players aren't just reacting to one bad change and then all of a sudden leaving and, oh my god, Bandai Namco is trash, NetherRealm is trash. But no, it's a multiple things that happen. They're reacting to a pattern. It starts to feel like the game isn't moving in a direction that fits them, and that's why they pivot and then just go to something else. Players are putting in time. Trust me, fighting games take forever to learn. If you actually want to sit down and learn a fighting game, it sort of feels like you have to dedicate your life to it. Like, especially now, I work another job, and I'm sure other people have their own stuff going on in their life, but in order to become like decent at a fighting game, like, I swear you got to put in at least 500 to 1,000 hours on it. And why would we do that if we just feel like it's going in a direction that is not satisfying, that we just don't care about? And on top of that, you gotta learn the systems, you gotta adapt to the patch culture and whatever gets changed, and it's just, too much. So like, if the developers are gonna betray us from what it feels like and make lies, or just go in a system or a different direction that just doesn't benefit us or the community, it feels like the effort isn't being rewarded the way it should be. And that's when players stop complaining and they just start leaving. I know a lot of players are like a bit saying that, oh, I still play Tekken, I still see a lot of players play Tekken. Yeah, a lot of players are gonna play Tekken, but there are a lot of players that are leaving. Like, go to my other video and look at the comment section. A lot of players are saying, yeah, I left this game for Guilty Gear Strive, I left this game for Virtual Fighter, games that are other fighting games, because, they gotta remember, Tekken isn't the only fighting game, Tekken isn't the only 3D arena fighter as well. So there's always competition that could steal away your opponents. So if you start, failing and letting down your players are just going to lose trust in you, and they're going to be like, yeah, remember when Bandai Namco did this to us? They straight up lied to us. They said they're going back to basics when they just pulled this BS. And like I said, this isn't just Tekken. It's about every single other fighting game there too. All the major ones, like the big three, they all have this issue. Mortal Kombat 1, Tekken 8, and Street Fighter 6. But I feel like Tekken 8 right now is where it's most noticeable, because of the whole controversy with Season 3. Obviously, it was really bad with Mortal Kombat 1, but that game is dead now. Everyone already left. You see the consequences of how a developer could really mess up their fighting game with that game. And because Tekken 8 was always known for its fundamentals, and now that's exactly what feel like it's being pushed aside. But that's just my take. I think Tekken 8 is still a great game at its core. When I first got Tekken 8, I loved it. But, in the direction it's going right now, that's what's concerning me and a bunch of other people. Because if this game keeps going in the same direction, with similar systems being added, the aggression philosophy, more forced playstyles, then I think Tekken 8 won't just have a balance problem. It'll just have like an identity problem, period. And I love when developers really innovate and they push what it means to be a fighting game, and they add some unique mechanics that actually make the game better. But the difference is, if you're gonna do that, you gotta do something that the fans actually want. You could innovate, and trust me, it's better to innovate. It's better to make your game stand out from the other fighting games in the genre, right? Because it's right now it's a little oversaturated, right? You got so many options to choose from, right? Casual and competitive. But you know, if you're gonna make new mechanics, you gotta do something that the fans actually want. But anyways, do you think this is just Tekken 8 or is just something off with fighting games right now? This is my take. Let me know what you think down below. This is a very discussion heavy topic, so I'd love to read your responses in the current state of Tekken 8 and just all fighting games right now. So yeah, comment down below, subscribe and join the Legion, like, share, and tell your friends about this and have a debate in the comment section. I don't care, as long as you guys aren't just saying some weird stuff. We don't want to pull out the police. I'm not about to remove some comments with hate speech or something because I know how passionate you guys are, right? But anyways, you guys have a good one. Thank you for watching if you made it this far. I love you all. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Ciao.